Thank you, Christina. Good to see you after this very long lockdown period. And
very happy.
And next slide, please. I would like to speak concerning this few words concerning this framework. Framework means this is a general strategy. Few important things. This is an international strategy approved by many governments, let's say almost all the governments belonging to the United Nations system, and is framed in a long period from 15 to 30 to 2030. And it is a framework for action, which means that all the disaster risks, all the different kind of risks, both natural, from natural origin or man-made, are involved. And it is a concrete support for the government, which approved it in Sendai 5 years ago. And it is there are some priorities, and for the first time, let's say that we are quite satisfied because, from our point of view, of course, because also cultural heritage has been inserted in this global and general platform with a specific role. Next slide, please. We will. So what resilient cultural heritage means? It means that the cultural heritage is being recognized as an important part of the society. So the strategy for protect the society, persons, life, of course, first, but also the health, their health, the socioeconomic asset, but also the cultural heritage. So it is both because it is important, and also because it helps to strengthen the resilience of the whole society. So the framework of Sendai is addressed in to reduce global disaster mortality, economic losses, and other critical infrastructure, and including the disaster occurred to the specific cultural heritage assets. So the increase increase the number of countries which have national local disaster risk reduction strategies. And let's say that Italy show in the previous intervention by the architect Recchia what Italy did in this field in general terms, but also to enhance international cooperation with the developing countries, and access to increase their ability of early warning and other means. Some of them have been also already presented. Next slide, please. But so in the priority, Alessandra Bonazza already shown in previous intervention some element of this. It is important to understand the disaster risk for a pre-disaster risk assessment in order to improve preparedness and of the society, of the organization, in order to allow an effective response. So there are some, in Sendai framework, there are specific targets to be achieved, a specific goal to given to the national and local levels. And as you may see from this slide, there are cultural heritage again is underlined. Next, please. And the priority 3 say that we have to invest, the society needs to invest in disaster risk reduction for the resilience, because for their immediate aspect, and also because this to increase the resilience, this will be a driver for innovation, growth, and also job creation. So these measures are not only cost effective in the field of protection, but also have a more general means for ensure general growth of the society. So to protect the cultural heritage is not only just a need for which have a sense in se, but is also very well connected to the general strategy for growing as a society. Next, please. In fact, what we explained and what has been, in some sense, understood, because this was one of the slides that I presented in Sendai as Christina reminded. There are a number of rules and attention that comes from a strategy which is focused on the single risk. No? So there are against the risk of earthquake, we have a specific rule for the buildings. Against the floods and water-related risk, we can have some specific measure. Others against the fire risk, or others again with other risk. But what is needed, this is clear to, I believe, all of us, that an integrated multi-hazard approach is a key for understanding. In this sense, please click on the screen, because there is an animation in the slide. Click on there, please. You have, eccolo qua. So in some sense, the cultural heritage insertion in this more general looking at scheme, which, because cultural heritage can be is subjected to many kinds of risk. We have already seen something concerning flooding and earthquake, but in general, we do have also the fire risk. We have in our mind, in our eyes, the images coming from Notre Dame, for instance. So, in this some sense, the insert the cultural heritage rotation with this in this frame make the people understanding why an integrated and multi-hazard approach is useful, is necessary for cultural heritage, and is very useful also in many other situations in order to build the resilience of nation and community to disasters. Next, please. Next slide, please. Of course, as I was mentioned before, it is clear that there are some specific World Heritage Patrimony, which is, I believe, evidenced, put on stage because they are important, but also in order to make people understanding. Speaking about Venice, it is clear why, to everybody, why it must be conserved. Next slide, please. And is also why, in this sense, we anticipated a bit what has been told in Sendai in 2015 in a specific European event that we had in Venice. Christina was there with me in 2012, and we supported a Venice Declaration. So it was the first time that the integration of heritage concern into national and local disaster risk reduction policy and plan were taking serious consideration. So there are both things to do. First, to insert heritage concern, but at the same time, we have to take also in the normal conservation of the monument, in the management plans for conservation, we have to put into more consideration the disaster possibility and the disaster risk reduction necessities. Next, please. Next. So, of course, Venice, everybody knows, and was already shown about the climate change effect. This is a clear example of climate change effect occurring in a city which is which has been built close to the sea. This is in the red, is the line of the increase of the mean sea level in Venice in something more than 1.5 centuries. We have more than 35 centimeters of rise of sea level, average sea level. And in blue, you see the column are written the number of flooding events. Of course, last year was the maximum. Unfortunately, we had more than 20 flooding events. Most of them were concentrated in a single month of November. Next slide, please. And this is a a picture of what occurred 2 years ago. It was a quite severe event. You see the San Marco Doge Palace and the church, the Basilica of San Marco, where their foot completely underwater. And next slide, please. But the event, next slide. The event, no, previous, ecco qua, perfetto. This one is showing the event of a few months ago, which was even worse. And because this is the crypt of the Basilica, which is kept normally free from water because it is impermeabilized from the water coming from the walls, because it's below the mean sea level. But unfortunately here, the water was so high, which entered through a window. And we have this quite dangerous situation never occurred before in November last year. Next, please. Next slide. But the real problem is not the single event, is the accumulated events, which since let's say 50, 60 years are taking salt water close to the marble. The marble are delicate. The different marble, kind of marble have a different behavior, but normally saying that is they do not like so much the salt which is taken in the water, because the salt is absorbed and then it breaks, crystallizes and breaks the structure of both of the marble structures and also of the plasters. Next slide. In this case, we had also go ahead with in this slide there are some animations, so you can click. Oh no, the previous one, please. Okay, you see that this very beautiful mosaic, which is one of also the oldest, unfortunately, which is in the main part of the Basilica. Due to the high pressure of the flooding occurred with an exceptional level of the water, there were some pressure coming from below, and you may see that this moved the floor where the mosaic are placed, and some serious deterioration occurred. And but in these beautiful peacocks, but also in other parts of the mosaic of the Basilica. Next slide, please. There are several parts where this exceptional pavement made of 2,000 square meters of mosaic that you can pass through. So let's say that this period of lockdown, when the Basilica was closed due to the emergency of COVID, give us the opportunity to starting a more intense recovery and restoration of these parts which were malnourished by continuous invasion of water from below. Next slide, please. And maybe this is but it's not only the floor that are damaged, because the brick are which are in the water can absorb the water and carry the humidity up to quite a high level, because in particular the San Marco Basilica is made mainly of bricks. The marble are only the exterior decoration, and on the bricks over the plasters, the mosaics are put for since a certain quote. Here we are up to 12 meters up, and here the salt arrived when the water goes out of the brick. The the salt crystallize and break the plasters, and also, as you can see, have this kind of effect on this poor Arcangelo Gabriele, which is quite high, but not enough to avoid the capillarity and then the damage from salt water. Next slide, please. So this risk is not just a single event. You can go on looking at the picture, please, in this slide. Okay, and the point is that while with the earthquake we have a large energy released in a very little interval of time, with this kind of pressure by salt water, we had in a few years an accelerated aging. You may see this is a beautiful marble coming from Thessalonica, and unfortunately the cave of this marble is exhausted, so we do have still some pieces to replace it, but we cannot repair it. So this is something which can be lost forever. So the problem here is a different kind of risk, which is not related to one single event, but the accumulated events and the accelerated aging, which is the result of this pressure. Next, please. How to cope with this? We have to find some new things in order to adapt. We have to protect what we already did in case of San Marco Basilica is try to avoid water to go in. The flooding, without going too much into particular, is occurring not only by overcoming of the top of the pavement from the sea, which is in front of the Piazza San Marco, but is also coming through the drainage which carry out the rain, and which when the level of the tide is high, can carry inside the salt water. So we used to block this entrance via this rain drainage, in order to protect to avoid the flooding in this way. Next, please. And now it is foreseen, is under evaluation on by the ministry, the proposal to protect with a barrier around the basilica made of glass. Actually, what you will see around is just a protection with some entrance, of course, for the people, made of glasses in order not to disturb the view of the basilica. And making use of what is already there, what the intervention we did 2 years ago. And we have also to repair the water which is coming from the back. This is just an example how to this kind of barrier. Let's say, no, sorry, I have to say that this kind of barrier is provisional, because when a more general protection of the city will be ready with the Mose system, and the overall piazza will be protected in a different way, this barrier will be taken out. But since we have to wait a bit too much for having both the Mose and the full impermeabilization of the piazza, we cannot wait too much, because the problem is also this accelerated aging. Would see that we cannot lose. We have already lost a lot of years, and we cannot allow this intrusion of water continue in the next future. So this barrier that has been proposed, and we hope that it could be put in place since the next November, we will protect and will avoid the invasion of salt water in the basilica. Next slide. I was just carrying this example, And this is my last thing, that the cultural heritage is very close to the feeling of the people, because the perception of the people is important, and because the life is made also on symbols, and cultural heritage also is a symbol of the city, of the society. And there are many, and this participation of citizens should be regulated, but supported. We have in Venice a group of volunteers which is dedicated to the protection of cultural assets. Of course, some interventions are made by the fire brigade, are made by the professionals, but we have for the different kind of risk, we have so many assets that is important also, not only for San Marco, but concentrating San Marco, but also spread in all the city. It is important that the reaction should be quite wide. That's why it is important to maintain to organize properly a citizen participation for cultural heritage protection, but it is also a way to increase the awareness of the people to the general target of having a reduction of disaster risk. I believe that this is all. Next one, please. Yes, thank you for your attention.